Welcome everybody, here Brady from BGWX, and we are back live for another breakdown video. But although there is going to be some winter weather this weekend expected across central and northern New England, and there is still a winter storm threat maybe down the line I'm keeping an eye on. That's still pretty far out, so details are still too early to have a specific idea on. I am watching for a pretty potent severe weather outbreak that has been noted by the Storm Prediction Center. And as you can see, I'll show you briefly the Storm Prediction Center highlighting this in their Day 5 severe weather outlook here for next Tuesday. And you can see here they're shifting it a little bit further east from their previous outlook. As you can see, here's where it was yesterday, and this is where they're highlighting it for today. And you can see for their Day 6 now, they're also including a lot of the eastern seaboard up from the southeast into the mid-Atlantic, even into the northeast, depending on if you consider Jersey or not part of the northeast. But as you can see, severe weather is definitely going to become a potent part of the early March forecast upcoming here. And here's one thing as we start playing this out is, there's our Clipper system that comes through, probably some strong winds on the backside too, as we'll see a little bit. We'll see a little bit of a gradient set up here where high pressure comes in behind, and so expect a windy weekend. But I will say there are still some curveballs coming up here with this forecast here for the severe weather. Notice our upper level energy doesn't come ashore still until about Monday, and that will definitely play a part in terms of the specific details of the forecast. But one thing I noticed too is, take a look here if we zoom out even more, North America. Also, before I go into this, I will note it's very saturated, the severe weather forecasting space. A lot of people have, just highlight the stuff. I'm going to try to take approach here, same way I would forecast winter storms. I'm going to try to take that approach for severe weather. If any of you noticed that post on X, I want to be able to focus on where is the severe weather, the most, impacted area likely to be during the day of the event, not what, is currently being highlighted. I want to be able to focus on that. So that's kind of the path we're going to take here upcoming for forecasting severe weather. And we're going to try to do it a little bit differently maybe than, others. I'm sure have some similar versions, but I'm going to try to do it differently than just, talk about what's, being highlighted, what the models show right now, even though we will do that. That's the approach we're going to take. And also, I have to say, I have to shout out my people in National Weather Service and NOAA. Very frustrating to see the situation ongoing, and I'd be remiss. I didn't want to take it too much to go on X, but I will do it here on the video, and it is very frustrating to see what is ongoing currently. And definitely feel for the people that had to undergo the obviously the significant layoffs that we're seeing currently, and also the frustration that will occur with model performance potentially with this as well. So that is definitely frustrating on multiple levels, from a human perspective and also weather perspective as well. So I felt I had to mention that. But upcoming here with the severe weather, I'm noticing here's where it gets tricky. Notice this Baja low out here. I'll zoom in and highlight that is where I am looking at. And here's where it gets a little tricky here is I'm keeping an eye. There we go. I'm keeping an eye right here. You can see the strung out boundary associated with this too. This is going to be a little bit tricky, I think, for models to figure out. Notice what happens here. That strung out boundary out ahead, I think it could cause some problems for models in terms of the specifics of the event ongoing. I think it's becoming obvious that there is going to be significant severe weather outbreak. What are the key ingredients that we're looking at here is, notice that 500 millibar vort really amplifies. So now we can zoom in again a little bit more, not to Europe, that's not where we want to go, but we'll notice here, we're seeing this trough ejection take place over the southwestern U.S., and then all of a sudden we see cyclogenesis process take place and allow that moisture feed off the Gulf of Mexico to take place out ahead. And initially too, it's almost perfect timing here, because initially, as this cyclogenesis process starting to take place, Monday night, you can see overlaying there, it's almost setting up perfectly the timing here for to be the PM hours later in the day, along with the moisture source starting to move over the Gulf of Mexico in location to where exactly our storm is at the upper levels. And take a look here. Now take a look, and we want the upper level winds, so it's fine. We'll switch to the Euro briefly. We don't need to go into specifics quite yet. And take a look here at the upper level winds, 500, and take a look here. You can see a trough that is, maybe about neutral tilted, potentially, possibly negatively tilted as we move. About neutral, slightly negatively tilted at that point, and that's going to be enough to potentially, allow us a specific area just southeast. If we go here back to 500 millibar vort, and I'd be looking here. Euro's maybe a little bit weaker than the Euro AI, as you can see here, so there is a difference, but I would be looking right about here potentially, and I'll show you where. Right out ahead in this area here is where I'd be looking for potential severe weather, just based on what we see on models now. And I think there could be an opportunity for this to shift even possibly a little bit further southeast, depending on what we see here. I think we've seen some stuff here with models over the winter where we've seen cyclogenesis process not be as smooth as forecasted. Now, this is a little different. You can see, just a good old single vort here amplification taking place. So there's not really a phase until later, until the latter part of the system. So that's not going to necessarily be a massive complication in the forecast. We're not looking for another piece to phase here and stream interact. Just a single vort here amplifying, and then just to the southeast, I think there's a multi-day severe weather threat that takes place, because now we're looking at high shear, probably lower instability as we move to next Wednesday. But along that eastern seaboard, notice what we're going to do here is take a look as we shift to North America, zoomed out, and we're go to upper air. Sure, well, maybe we're not going to we'll go back to United States, and we'll go to upper air moisture, and we'll go to 850 rel. Notice our moisture source now. See that tail, that comma, as we have a well-developed cyclone that's not necessarily going to be strengthening anymore, but you're continuing to pull up moisture up the East Coast. And take a look what we're going to do with surface temperatures here. We're going to pull up all that warm air, so we're going to now allow for a severe weather threat to ride up the East Coast as well. So we're not going to get into too many specific details, but I will say that the threat potentially down the line for possibly stronger tornadoes, we're not going to talk about how strong because that's unnecessary this far out. And also the threat, I believe, really all modes of severe weather, I think, are at play here. I think the potential for, damaging hail, very strong wind gusts, potential for a strong QLCS line to develop. And I would be looking at already potentially areas in the Mid-South for a strong QLCS line eventually to be developing. That is one specific detail that I think we should be keeping an eye on. But you can see here we start amplifying the storm. Like you say, it's almost perfect timing here, as look what we're going to do here is we'll slide to upper air moisture. We'll go to 850. We're going to create a nice open warm sector out ahead here, and then we're just going to allow for the exact timing here for explosive cyclogenesis to take place as well. And that timing is going to help really potentially maximize the severe weather potential. And again, I would be looking at currently, not to shade too much, it's not going to be, it's actually the SPC kind of shifted more towards where I was kind of thinking earlier, but I think this area here is where I'm definitely watching for the most significant severe weather potential at the moment. Just a rough area. I think, you could expand that a little bit, and then this starts to shift further east potentially. You can't even rule out severe weather up into southern New England here, but this is where I think we start watching come Wednesday. So that is kind of where the severe weather attention shifts, and I would say the severe weather threat for potentially strong tornadoes down the line, how strong, TBD in terms of that. And then very strong wind gusts, potentially QLCS line developing as well. and that maybe that squall line holding together as it moves to the east coast. We'll see. Still too early to say. And then the threat for significant hail down the line. And I would also have to say flash flooding as well. Anytime we're going to be looking at a potent severe weather setup like this, this is certainly in place. And also considering the flood that just happened in a lot of places in the Mid-South as well, I would have some concern there. So that's kind of what's in store. I want to give you guys a breakdown video on what to expect upcoming here. Certainly some concern with the severe weather outbreak, and I wanted to kind of get my thoughts as we're going to start kind of covering this, and maybe not stream every day, but we are going to do, I'm going to try to do some continued videos breaking down the severe weather here. So I appreciate you all tuning in, and I hope you all have a great day. Hit the like if you don't mind. It's very much greatly appreciated. And if you're new, consider subscribing. We do a lot of winter content, obviously, during the winter, real in-depth analysis to give you guys my thoughts on how I think things may play out. And I'm not always going to be right, but goal is to try to be as little as wrong as possible. Hopefully that came out right. So I appreciate you all, and until next time, peace.